Good afternoon. TR Coverson here. I am your host of this podcast, Masculinity, Blessing or Curse. I want to today talk about something that is very personal and big to me. Traditionally, or usually, my show is about trying to connect generations. And I think this dovetails into that as well. I want to talk about marriage. The 12th of August, 2026, commemorates 48 years of marriage for my wife and I. 48 years. I remember her parents a couple of months shy of 60 years was their marriage. For reasons that I won't go into now, I don't remember a lot of marriage celebrations as I was growing up. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime. But 48 years with the same woman. The the idea of a man being married. I had someone say this to me when I was 30 years in marriage. Someone said to me, "You've been married 30 years to the same woman?" He said, "I've been married three times, and the three times do not total 30 years. Marriages are under attack. I think statistically now, 50% of marriages, even in the Christian circles, end in divorce. It's a very, it's a unique relationship. It is a relationship that is unique in that it is the only one where we talk about two people becoming one flesh, that they pledge or covenant with each other that for better, for worse, for richer or poorer, we will be together. We commit ourselves to one another forever. Now, my wife and I were married at young ages. I think I was 22, she's 18, or something like that, some young ages. Um, but from that point forward, and now 48 years later, we've been together, carrying that same pledge and commitment. I remember years ago, we did a workshop, and I had a number of men who had had at least 3 decades of marriage behind them to get on a podium and talk about how it was done. Well, as I now would be on that podium myself at 48 years of marriage, I say, people ask for pearls of wisdom. I say the same way I say that we raised kids. My wife and I have three children, grown children. Between the three kids, five college degrees, four grandchildren, beautiful. God has been good to us. That is, I think, the first thing that you have to deal with, because the mathematics only works in a spiritual realm where it says one plus one equals one. Because it says, and they two shall become one flesh. It's a very dynamic thing as we talk about marriage. And I think so because, from the biblical perspective, and I'll do that first and then we'll go to some, maybe some practical things. Ask questions of me and I'll see if I can answer some. But when God said, "Let us make man in our image," he said, "Let us make man." And when he made man, the original man was mankind. So it was man and woman. He later, in Genesis 2, would put Adam to sleep and extract from his side woman. And Adam named her woman because God had called them all man. So the the idea of one being superior to the other is should not be the case, because when God said, "Let them have dominion," woman was still in man at that time, so it did not create this air of superiority that we like to attribute to that creation. When God said man, he was talking mankind. The Greek word ish means mankind or humankind. But this idea, this treasure of this relationship, and I say treasure, and yet sometimes we confess that it is better and for worse, because there are challenges within a marriage. And I alluded to this a moment ago, saying that making it up as I go along. Whatever book you read, whatever advice you get, has to be germane to the people that are involved. You can get ideas and suggestions from other people, but to make a relationship work, there's a lot of give and take. And I tell you, there's stages of it. When we first got married, first couple of years we were married, it's just us searching out each other. And I'll be candid with you, a lot of the gratification came with going out to entertaining and the sexual relationships that are involved. I mean, wow, this is my person, my woman, my man, etc. And that's a fascinating part of it. Now, what leads often from that is that you start to have children, which we did 2 years later. I think my daughter is now 45, 46. We're married 48. So 2 years later, we have children, and that creates a whole different plateau of relationships, because now it's not just a relationship between husband and wife, it's relationship between husband and wife, but with the caveat of we have a child to raise, or children if they're twins or whatever. So that's a different, and you somewhat lose yourself in this whole idea of morphing into a parent, and you recognize the how critical it is to raise a parent. You assume that both adults are adults and they're fine, but getting to know each other. If you're young, married, or what have you, be sure to add date nights to it, because what becomes important to women, wives, is the intimacy. Men often want the sex itself. Women want the intimacy. They want the touching. They want to be listened to. They want to be heard. And oftentimes, that's not a skill or a talent that we grew up appreciating. Um, Men often are very driven by natural drives, I'll just say it that way. Whereas women are very emotional, or can be very emotional. So the touching, the feeling, the words that you might say, the appreciation. Um, and love is the background of it. How do you get to it? There's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of things that you learn about yourself. Um, this idea of masculinity. Wow, I'm the man, and all of that. Well, when you start to deal with your spouse, this is yourself, and they two shall become one flesh. The example that we get is Jesus and the church. What would Jesus do for his bride, the church? Well, we know he sacrifices everything for her. And yet, part and parcel with that is that men often suffer in their relationships because they typically we don't know how to do relationships. We're being educated on the job training, really, because often in a relationship platform, we've simply been taught to just don't say anything, just be quiet, just let it go, and keep thrusting through. But often there are pains that you don't say because you don't know how to emotionally articulate those pains because you often did not grow up in that environment. But all in all, once you take a moment to listen, a book that I'm reading now talks about praying with your spouse, not just praying for your spouse. Certainly, you do that, but praying with your spouse. Train yourself to listen without offering an answer immediately. Um, Date nights are important because, especially when there are children involved, you often have the competition of trying to be the parent, be the parent, be the parent, because the child is so demanding for obvious reasons. It's an infant, but there's often you have to chop away time to be growing yourself as a husband and wife, and the demands of financing and house and all of those other things go with that. But all of those things, that surrounding yourself with people who appreciate who you are as a couple, become important. Having male friends who have the same profile as you, people who are interested in long-standing relationships. A dear friend of mine said years ago, said to me, the greatest gift that you could give your children is that you love their mother. You offer respect to their mother. So certainly you have a position as a father, males, but you also have a position as a husband. You take on a title or responsibility of being provider, protector, and I would argue priest, so that you are the one who is going to be disseminating all of those things in the essence of you. Now, that's not to say that women cannot be providers or protectors, but for me, it was a necessity that I feel that role of provider, of protector, of priest, that I am the one that will be at the forefront of sharing the word of God to my children. And that was important for me. It's something that I think the Holy Spirit taught me as I was growing up for whatever reason. And then some exposure to some people, older couples, that I had a chance to get up close and personal to be a part of it. Study each other, learn each other. The idea that for, I'll say on an average, 20 years, you grew up, the female grew up in an environment and the male grew up in an environment, and often you didn't know each other for 15, 20 years of that time. But the character of each of you would have been in the process of being molded and shaped. There are certain cultural, family, uh, historic norms, culture, things that you do that you take for granted. That if you grew up in an environment where everyone ate dinner at the same time, at 6:30, everybody in the family was at the table at the same time, and the other grab a plate and you eat and you go out and play. There's just that slight different thing could make a difference. And you need to take a look at what were some common things in your past that you did that may have made a difference. Because if you sat at the table every day at 6:30, then maybe everybody talked about their day, and you got accustomed to hearing, get accustomed to speaking what your day was and listening to someone else. Well, if you never did that, you don't you may not really appreciate the idea of I need to tell you what happened, and the other person is offended because you're not talking to me. But wow, in the final analysis, this is a person that will know you as well or better than anyone because they will have spent more time with you. I have spent more time with my wife than any other human being. Um, my Her parents were with her up until they passed away, but they did not stay with her in the same house or what have you for 40 years, 45, 48 years. I'm the only one that's done that, and she with me. So you get a chance to peel the onion of yourself and another person. And if you can, I think humor is a very important part of it. If you can learn to laugh at what some people might call very critical and important and serious and you want to fuss or fight about, laugh about them. Have some joy in your life. Do things together. Find those things that you can do together. I am a person very, I consider myself somewhat of an athlete. I'm in the gym 4 days a week. My wife is not that person. So we don't get to do that together. But there are other things, other hobbies that you might gain. Try to, maybe it's music, maybe, you can dance or what have you. But learn to appreciate the humanness of another person. And as you're doing that, you get a chance to learn things about yourself. And you learn to appreciate who you are yourself. I'd appreciate if we could maybe have a forum of married men. I think women do a great job of articulating what their concerns, pains, hurts are. Men, not so much. Um, I would appreciate if we could have that conversation, even those that are not married who are interested. I believed, even at younger ages, that I was to be the person that would be married rather than a single life. Having children and being in someone's life that way was kind of an inevitable thing for me. For some people, it may not be, but it is a special relationship, and I treasure this idea of being married. We took a mini vacation, took 2, 3 days um, at a nice hotel. It was a nice one, nice restaurants, and we watched sunsets. Sat on the beach and watched sunsets. So it was very nice, very romantic. She was happy about it. I was happy about it. So it was great. But take this moment to wish my wife and I happy 48th wedding anniversary. God bless you. God keep you. Tune in with us next week. I have some special guests coming on next week if I can get them cornered, that you'll want to hear. But thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, and you'll be notified for each time we share, and that would be on Sunday afternoons at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern. God bless you and God keep you.